Yeah, I had like an afternoon nap, and whenever I wake up from an afternoon nap, I always feel like just kind of weird. And I don't like I took my brain pills. I took my alpha brain, head on over to
Your
onit.com.
supplements,
Yeah.
your colloidal silver.
Yeah. And I don't know. I had coffee, but I just can't like shake that feeling. And
Yeah,
I feel like not like existential dread or anything like, when I feel anxiety, which I've been really good with. Honestly, I think those mushrooms somebody slipped me when we were on the river have
oh,
done a good job at the PTSD from my injury.
that's awesome. A
I
lot
I
of people say
genuinely
that.
mean that. Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of people say that. Yeah.
A
Never
lot of
tried.
people are saying, "You keep quoting Trump." You did that in the hidden track too. Many people say, yeah, I don't know. And so, like, right before I took my nap, I was listening to that Tristan Snell interview where they were like, "Look, the reality is it's got to be Biden." And I was like, "Well, that's fucking depressing. I think you guys are right." And then right after that, I listened to Ziegler's show.
Mhm.
I was just like, well, this is fucking terrible. Like we're stuck with him and he's horrible. So I think we're fucked. Like, and then I fall back on the fact that I'm an independent and I don't like any of these people anyways. It was always a matter of degree about what I was hoping for. Like hopefully we have what we have right now where Joe Biden goes in and we hold him accountable to what he's doing, or he loses. And if everything goes wrong, you lose the ability to hold those people accountable. Like that's
Right.
honestly,
Well, so I think that I don't agree with Tristan in a lot of things that he said on that show.
guys, if
I
you want to get caught up with what we're talking about, just we've been talking for 40 minutes in the hidden track. Join the
right.
Patreon. It's $3 a month.
So I think that courts have traditionally sided with party mechanics as far as political parties in this country are allowed to kind of do whatever they want to
That's kind of what they
choose.
said in the Colorado decision, right? Where they
Right.
wouldn't let them take them off the primary because it
Right.
was okay.
It was a party mechanic sort of thing.
All right.
So the courts tend to stay out of that. So I think, that could be ugly. There could be a lot of legal challenges, a lot of litigation.
You've got 2 months to do it.
I think it's still doable. I also think that there is a meeting before the convention in August, like early August.
So there'd be like a pre-convention because Ohio is the question. Ohio
Right.
specifically, for some reason, I don't understand.
If the
If
candidate isn't decided
if it's not
before.
decided before the convention, Ohio won't be in it, which is a swing state.
A weird thing, yeah. So they have a meeting in early August wherein they could work all of this out, and so no, I think that we're definitely not just stuck. I think that what Tristan talks about, all the money that the Biden campaign has raised,
He's
not being
wrong there that they can transfer
they
that to
can't
another
transfer
candidate
that
because
money
of
to
super
an
PACs, because of the
right,
problems with campaign finance.
right.
So if
I
he's
mean,
wrong there, he can be wrong with other. I mean, when I listen to Bob and Tristan and any of those guys, I always take it with a grain of salt. I probably shouldn't take it so set in stone what they're saying to be accurate.
I think like so. If it's Kamala, it's way easy. If it's another candidate, it's still
That's
doable.
not a winner, though.
It's just not as easy.
Well,
Um,
like if it's Kamala, as much as I don't want her to be the candidate, I can see the I can see the voting block still turning out in the same way. If
mhm,
they don't go with Kamala and they go with an actually good candidate like Andy Bashir, man, a two-term he just got reelected last year, the governor of Kentucky, or this
mhm,
year. The governor of Kentucky is a Democrat, and he was a Democrat for the last 4 years, and he's a
right.
Democrat now, and he just won a second term in Kentucky, the state that turns in their test first and says Trump and Mitch McConnell. Oh, also this Democrat to be in charge of the whole state, like that. If you can do that, that's a blueprint for this country. Like that's actually
For sure,
hopeful. Like I would
for sure.
actually be excited about for sure. I know there's a lot of things to not like about him, but
I
it's
think also my fallback position
nobody's
here
knows.
is that regardless of who is ultimately the candidate for the Democratic Party versus Trump, there are a lot of people that will simply vote for somebody who isn't Trump. And
That's what
there,
we've been saying. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't think that having
Yeah,
this
but
conversation about replacing Biden with a more viable candidate is problematic. I don't think, as Tristan Snell said, that it equates to wearing a MAGA hat. I think that you can have these conversations and still understand that Trump
what
is
about a
next.
gray cowboy hat?
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
It looks good on you. Uh, you know, I,
Our biggest hater said all hat, no cattle. It's like, yeah,
I saw that.
I live in a three-bedroom
Kevin
house. There
from
are cows in the back.
Nashville.
Oh, Kevin from Nashville is my favorite
He's
hater. It's
coming in
like,
hot.
remember at the end of last show, I was like, I want to be famous enough to have someone that does a bad impression of us. I feel like we're halfway there with
We're almost there.
like
That guy
all
can
he
do
does
it.
is drive engagement with our post and call us names. And then
Yes.
like I'll post pictures from floating the river and he's like, dude, I have a paddleboard. Why don't you invite me? It's like, what? Like every time I say anything, you say TDS. Meanwhile, we posted a 3.5-minute video and he spent a day and a half ranting about it, like constantly updating comments on it. It's like, you have NTDS, none-taken derangements. Like, we can't do anything without you calling us names. Like, I love it. Like, I absolutely love it.
You should
I
invite
never
him.
understood what people meant when they said they love having haters until
Yeah.
him. Like, he
Yeah.
really opened my eye to the joy of it, you know.
You should invite him to paddleboarding. I think.
I don't think I want to spend time with him. He doesn't listen to the show. If he
He
listened to
couldn't
the
be
show,
worse.
dude, if he listened to the show, he would actually understand me contextually. And
Right.
he wouldn't be mad at me off like one rant that says something bad about his favorite guy. You know, it's
I mean, it couldn't possibly be worse than the guy that made you like an hour late the last time and made you pull out of the river early.
no,
Like,
he's probably better than him.
he's probably better than that dude. I mean, come
Although I don't talk to him very much. So,
on.
so the reason I brought all this up initially, what I was
Uh-huh.
going to ask you is, you know, part of what sort of like drove Biden's campaign, especially in 2020, was that he was like a man of character.
Mhm.
I feel like that phrase kind of was, if not said, it was implied. Biden is a man of character, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like a man of character wouldn't be playing mutually assured destruction with the Democratic Party. And isn't that what Biden's doing? He's basically, he said it. He's like, you don't want me to be the candidate in the campaign? Come after me. See what happens to your campaign. Like, I will bring you down with me if you take me out. That's what he said.
That is what he said. And did you read Clooney's op-ed?
No, I didn't read what Clooney said, but I do have a clip for next week's show where Tristan Snell was like, look, these Hollywood douchebags saying all this stuff don't understand that the movie's already been filmed. You can't change the leading role. All you can do is change the marketing. And I'm like, well, with AI these days,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
change
you
the leading
could
role,
do that.
but, you know.
Yep. Well, it's in the headlines later. We'll get to it.
Okay.
But he's saying something similar to what you just said, actually. Yeah.
Sorry, I was having a drink out of my TIE Fighter.
Ah, nice.
I've got a whole growler to get through because I opened it the other day and they don't last long. Once you open them. So I got to fill this TIE Fighter like 4 or 5 times. I got to drink a lot tonight, Alan. But tomorrow's Friday. It's fine.
It's fine.
I got to work on a dish machine early in the morning, but it's fine. I've got a coworker and he's gung ho. He's like, I'm going to get there at 5:30. I'm like, I'm going to show up on time. It's like the machine works. It's just got a very, very, very slow leak. Like we can get there on time. Like, I don't know what your fucking agenda is, but if you have it done by the time I get there, that's not my fault. Like, I've got plenty of other shit to do. I love this guy, but sometimes, dude, personal life, sure, tragic personal life on the Friday show. I was still like having a moment about Addie, and he was like, hey, I heard you're gonna come meet me at this job site. I'm like, I don't know how the fuck you know that. Like, I had a separate call from him. He was working at this job site, and while I was driving there from like 40 minutes away, he called me. He's like, hey, I heard you're coming over here. I'm like, okay. He's like, well, just so you know, it's hard to park. This is downtown. It's always hard to park. Right. Like, I don't know why you're calling me. I was like, all right, well, I got a spot I normally use. I'll check there. He's like, okay. And then he didn't have anything to say. I'm like, all right, I love you, bud. Talk to you later. Like, and then I get there and I don't call him and tell him I found a spot because I have my own fucking call to run. Apparently the reason I'm going there is because he had 2 other calls and he was busy. Well, I check in through security. They take me over to the machine I'm going to work on. And I look and his tool bag's sitting on top of the machine. And I asked the guy in the room, I'm like, why are there tools there? He's like, that's your coworker. I'm like, well, where's my coworker? He's like, he's outside looking for you to show you where to park. I'm like, so then the guy's like, hey, I don't have time for you to work on this right now. I got to like run some dishes through it because it works. Why don't you take a lunch? Cafeteria is making burgers today. You can have a burger. I'm like, man, that's nice. So I go put my headphones in, and at one point I started having a moment thinking about Addie, and I'm getting real sad. And I'm being emotional, but I'm in public, so I'm keeping it together. And by the way, dude, Taylor, Trent from Spread the Positive podcast. Fuck, I'm blanking on other names. Guys, thank you for reaching out to me. It really means so much. And anybody who's hesitated to, you're not going to bug me to bring it up. I appreciate it. Oh my God, my friend from work that lives in Georgia. What's her name? Cooler. I know her Instagram. Cooler girl. Oh, I'm blanking. Sorry. Thank you so much. She's a great fan of the show. Like, she's the one awesome. To be the producer. I'm literally blanking on your name. I'm so sorry. Anyways, I'm gonna remember it. Casey. So then he shows up while I'm at lunch, and he's like, "Oh, you found a place to park?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, okay, where'd you get food? I'm like, right here. We're in the cafeteria eating. He's like, I, I love this guy. He's not an idiot. I'm making him sound dumb. And he's like, okay. And then he's like, by the way, I know what's wrong with the dish machine you're working on. I'm like, then why am I here? 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 So then I go back in there and I look at what he's saying. I'm like, that's definitely it. But it's my call now. And now I have to order the parts and replace the parts. It's like, if you were doing it, then you're in charge of replacing the parts. I don't want to, by the way. It's on the back of a fixed machine with about 6 inches between the wall and the machine.
Oof.
It's like, I would rather, if you found it, it should be your fucking problem. Like,
Is he just like younger and newer, or what's up?
no, he's just gung ho, and I love it. I love that about him.
Good energy.
In this
Yeah.
application, it was bothering me, and I was emotional at the time.
Right.
I think I kept it together. He's also one of those guys that you could be rude to, and he just goes like, "Hey man, you're not going to bother me." And I'm like, yeah, I appreciate it about you, but like, yeah, it's like not right now, man.
Yeah.
Why was he saying any of this? Joe Biden?
Yeah, Joe Biden. I don't know.
Oh, I have to wake up early tomorrow, so I have to drink this whole
Oh.
growler. That's what I was going to say.
Right. So what time is on time? You said he's getting
8.
He's getting here at 5:30?
Yeah.
What the?
In fact, we're really cool at our branch. They're like, we don't want you to travel more than 30 minutes. So leave your house at 7:30. If it takes you more than 30 minutes, be on the clock at 8.
That's
Get
cool.
there when you get there, unless it's something where it's like this machine is down.
Emergency.
Yeah, of course. Like that's different. But it's like this machine works. It is a very slow trickle that over the course of the day makes the floor a little wet, like next to a drain. So it's like, this is fine. It's also a dish room. It gets wet in there anyways. Like they're spraying shit. Like, all right. People are about to figure out my job, so I need to drop it. Like, all right. What? So Joe Biden, he's playing mutually assured destruction, though, right?
It certainly seems that way. I don't know, man.
If they replace Joe with Kamala, I think the big tent stays together. I don't like it, and a lot of the independents probably won't be on board as much, which might be a deal breaker. But if you replace Kamala, if you get rid of Kamala, you seriously do risk the black vote. And just going from Obama to Hillary, they say that caused a marginal shift in black voters that can account for Trump winning in 2016. So I'm concerned about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. As I'm observing sort of what's going on in the political zeitgeist, I am seeing a lot of people trying to sort of rehabilitate Kamala's image politically.
Yeah, you were talking about that, right? You were like, they say she just had 2 bad press conferences. I'm like, I have a whole soundboard full of sounds.
Even people saying that, her
they're like, they make fun of her for laughing funny. It's like, no.
Well, there's that, but also her image is sort of like a cop, right? As what she was as an AG. Now people are trying.
You just fell out of the coconut tree.
People are trying to spin that and say
that she's not burdened by what has been.
They're trying to spin that as an asset rather than a liability, and saying, look, if you have Kamala and Trump on the debate stage, which
one of them is actual law and order.
Well, yeah, but by the way, that's not going to happen. Trump would never agree to that. But if you did that, she could say, look, I was an attorney general and I prosecuted people and I reduced crime and I had a higher conviction rate than the AG before me. And this guy has been convicted of 34 felonies, is facing, like you can say all of that.
It'd be cool if the president said, my vice president has all of these things, but he can't. He just said,
right.
Well,
that's the problem, though. Yeah. All the stuff, as we've said in the hidden track, that debate was horrific for Biden, but Trump was also terrible in that debate. And
you got to see the first and second worst debate performances of all time on one stage.
And any competent debater on that stage would have been able to say, no, that's bullshit. Everything you just said isn't true. And Biden tried, but he couldn't actually follow through and say, this is why. And Kamala probably could. I don't know. We'll get more into it.
I suppose so. All right. Well, speaking of things where Biden tried, should we play our opening sound? So a lot of times I'm like, oh man, I got a whole list. I had a Chick-fil-A joke that was going to be our opening sound this week. But I don't even remember the Chick-fil-A joke, but an hour before we started the show, we got a recap of Biden's speech at the second day of the NATO conference.
Right.
So here's Biden trying. I feel like, oh wait, I got to get on the page so I can do the actual show open. Oh man, we didn't do
we didn't do
a
the
bumper at
thing.
the beginning. Damn it.
No.
We're still working this out.
Yeah. It's a work in progress.
All right, so Biden tried.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
Y'all let me in this damn house.
It's Joever.
Should we hit record?
Yeah, it's Joever. All right, you ready?
I am ready.
It's never been so Joever.
Are you recording?
That's yes. All right. You want to start a show?
Let's start a show.
That podcast is filling your head with garbage.
No offense taken there.
Well, it sounds like none taken.
Asking mama, she'll say the same thing. I got all the ways, I just ain't got the means.
Boom. To the Friday headlines wrapped up edition of Not Taken, where every week my good friend Alan wrangles up the headlines from all over the internet and cable news. He talk them at you because I listen to 3 hours of podcasts a day, and Alan watches 3 hours of cable news, so you don't have to. And now, get ready to take a sledgehammer to the culture war echo chambers because it's fucking Friday.
So, another Friday is upon us. What'll you be doing, Smithers? Something gay, no doubt. What? You know, lighthearted, fancy-free. Mothers, lock up your daughters. Smithers is on the town.
Exactly, sir.
Exactly, sir. Hey, do us a favor right now. Head on over to nonetakenpod.com. If you're cheapskate, that's totally understandable. For $3, there's a link there. For $3 a month, you get all our hidden tracks. There always is something in there that has to do with the week that was, but there frequently is stuff in there that's kind of funny in general. This week, something about Muhammad Ali doing a joke we told on this show that we thought we were original about the origin of that joke. Yeah, head on over to nonetakenpod.com. Join the Patreon. $3 a month, $9 a month, $18 a month. There's benefits you get at the $18 a month tier where you get a Culture Warrior t-shirt. Other than that, you get access to all the videos we've ever done, videos of the show the stuff that we play with a little bit better context. You can watch me drink my beer out of a TIE Fighter mug. Alan, pad for me.
Absolutely. You can also see the videos that we're playing, so kind of more context to what we're talking about.
See the TIE Fighter.
Right, you can see it.
And there's other things there. There's links to our merch tab where you can get things like our mug that says we say cunt in this house, which I really need to drink out of more when we do the show. And what else can they do, Alan?
All our socials are there, the RSS feeds, also a link to our number one supporter, slickestdigital.com, for all your SEO and marketing needs, slickestdigital.com.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Happy Friday, everybody. We made it to another one. Another weekend is here. Have a fucking can of beer. Let's go.
You've earned it.
The week we've had, we've definitely earned it.
Can you believe Joe said President Putin? Like, that's got to be it, right? Like, there can't be more after this. Like,
so he did say
that was his big boy press conference.
Well, that was before that, but
I thought that was edited at first. I was like, ain't no way he did this.
No, he said that. But he did say after.
That's worse than when George W. said invading Iraq was a war crime.
So the part of that clip that you don't see is afterwards. He said, I'm so obsessed with trying to beat Putin that he's on top of my mind. Is what
Shut the fuck up, Joe.
That's what he said.
No.
Anyways, yeah, I don't know how the big boy actual press conference went because it was kind of happening while we were doing the hidden track, so I wasn't able to hear it. So I don't have any commentary on that. Our first few headlines here are really all about Biden and his his ability to continue to stand as the Democratic nominee for president in 2024.
We had a bit of
Um,
a debate in the hidden track about whether. Oh no, that was how we opened the show. I'll let you talk. Your turn.
Okay.
All right, bud.
So, I mean, I'm going to hop into these headlines. And really, some of this we talked about on the Tuesday show. I'm just sort of highlighting everything that's occurred in the last week or so
Okay.
since the disastrous debate that happened 2 weeks ago. So, President Biden said he is staying in the race in a letter to congressional Democrats. 5 House Democrats have publicly urged Biden to drop his 2024 candidacy, though the tally is expected to grow. It has, in fact, grown as of today. There are 14 House members, including the ranking Dem on the Intel committee.
Dude, I can't stress enough how important it is that all of the people that most of the outspoken people are on the Intel. What did you say it was?
The Intel committee. Yeah.
Intel committee. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's a fucking liability, dude.
Yeah, as well as a senator, as well as Senator Peter Welch. If you watch as much cable news as I do, you will
Which we
have
don't advise. That's why you listen and untake.
right.
So
you
you
will
don't.
have seen a lot of these pundits and people who previously served in the Obama administration and even in Biden's administration are coming out and saying, look, this is untenable. This needs to change. There was a post on the Hill today wherein people in the Biden administration are saying that they think Obama is behind the scenes coordinating this.
I got that in the big show. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they say it's Obama, but they say Obama and David Axelrod, which every time
Right.
we talk about David Axelrod, I say, just for context, he made Obama.
Right.
Obama
And
just deserves credit for being his own man. I don't mean to undermine that, but
no.
like there's always a manager that creates these politicians
Sure.
and elevates them, right? Like,
Yeah.
like Obama broke through at the speech he gave at the DNC in 2004. Well, you don't get to just do that, right? Like there was people that
Somebody
thought
built-
you should
yeah.
be able to, right?
Right.
Axelrod's been and Axelrod also made Rod Blagojevich, but he was also the person that left Rod Blagojevich because he asked him, "Why do you want to be governor?" And he said, "What do you mean, why?" He's like, "I can't be your manager." I actually do respect Axelrod because of that, like, but and because of this too. I agree with Axelrod in this case.
I think Biden's called Axelrod like a prick on
He
record.
fucking hates him.
He
He
fucking
thinks that
hates him.
Axelrod. So a lot of people have simplified this and said that there's tension between Obama and Biden about the 2016 election and how Biden
Sure.
backed Hillary instead of him.
Mhm.
And it's not quite that. It's Axelrod, and he knows that. Biden knows that, right?
Right.
Go ahead.
Okay. Also, I don't know. So, these first 3 headlines I'm just combining into one. So, George Clooney, a prominent Democratic fundraiser, called on President Biden to drop
Wasn't
out.
he the head of the Film Actors Guild? No, that's Matt Damon. Remember
That's
in Team America?
Yeah.
Matt Damon and George Ackland. Good job, Film Actors Guild. 'Cause it stands for
Fagatoga.
remember, you guys have seen Team America, right?
You guys, yeah.
Yeah.
America, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
So Clooney wrote a op-ed in the New York Times calling for Biden to drop out of the race. He said that Biden was a hero. He was the savior of our democracy in 2020, and he needs to be a savior again in 2024 by stepping aside.
It's almost exactly what I've said. I said you get to go down in the history books as saying I was wise enough to step out of the way.
Yeah. And I mean, Clooney, whatever you think of him,
Handsome.
he's a huge fundraiser.
He killed Brad Pitt in Burn After Reading.
He's a huge fundraiser for the DNC.
He just gave like with that
Yeah.
that stage where everybody says that Biden had to get ushered off the stage by Obama. He
Mhm.
was like one of the main donors and organizers of that.
Well, he says that in the op-ed. He's like, look, I fundraised for this guy like,
2 weeks ago.
less than a month ago.
Yeah.
But after his performance at debate, I can't stand by him anymore.
Yeah.
So I think you're starting to see the bricks fall here.
Thanks in the armor, Alan.
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking about it for, since the debate. But yeah, it definitely feels, at least right now, like there is a groundswell and this dam is about to break. That would be
when we talked
prediction.
about the intelligence committee people standing against him. I will keep this person nameless, and it's not the person that goes by nameless in the show.
Mhm.
I'm just going to read something from the DMs, Alan.
Yeah.
I can't support this enough in regards to the people in the intelligence committee saying that this is the problem, a liability. I feel very strongly that age is a significant factor for our national security. Now, you might think the way we keep talking about it, where he's just like not quick, not with it, he's embarrassing, right? No, bigger than that. His health is an insurmountable obstacle. We need a moderate Democrat that is willing to spend time on the floor of Congress to work on bridging divides, because that's the problem, right?
Mhm.
There is nothing about Biden that can make people get along.
Right.
Like we need like a Jeff Jackson, right?
Mhm.
And to work on bridging divides. I'm afraid that the House is going to turn way too red and in the wrong kind, right? Not like the types of Republicans that, can actually govern. If Democrats want to save democracy, in quotes, since democracy dies in the dark, in quotes, they need to put forward a viable candidate. And I agree. I mean, a lot of people talk about this in the context of him being inept and old and fumbling and weird, looking embarrassing. But no, like a youthful candidate with an agenda that everyone can get behind, regardless of party, and the ability to get people to get behind him, regardless of party, is exactly what we need. Or a Republican that can,
Sure.
but they're stuck with Trump and MAGA.
Can I read this? I'm going to read this one line from
Yeah.
the op-ed by Clooney. He says, "The one battle he cannot win is the fight against time. None of us can. It's devastating to say it, but the Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the Joe big effing deal Biden of 2010. He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. He was the
Yeah.
same man we all witnessed at the debate." Man, that's devastating
Tristan
politically.
Snell called him a backstabber for that.
I think Snell is blinded by
I think so
his
too.
own
Well, I
biases,
think
man.
Snell is convinced that it's not feasible. So he's throwing everything he can at why they shouldn't attempt to change it.
I mean,
I
so
mean, in a
Ezra,
sense, like if you're drinking the Kool-Aid like that, you see all of this as a coup, right? Biden is
sure,
facing a coup.
I guess that's what you see.
I
Yeah.
think he's going to overcome it. I mean, until he fucking called Zelensky Putin.
I mean, Ezra Klein had another political opinion columnist from the Times on his show last week who sort of had disagreed with him about asking Biden to back down. And honestly, I listened to that episode, and by the end of it, they were agreeing so much that even Klein was like, "Look, we're agreeing too much. This isn't going to be a good show. Like, what are we going to talk about?" I came away from that like, no, this is definitely doable politically. Um, the party can do this if they
Yeah, they
choose
just have
to.
to organize behind it. And if they're
Right.
not, if they're typical Democrats, they're not going to be able to.
I mean, definitely the clock is ticking as far as the amount of time that we have left to do something different. But also the things that what Tristan said in that show, he's like, well, nobody has time to get name recognition in the amount of time left to.
That's not true.
It's not true.
Yeah.
It's not true at all.
Can you
Obama
imagine?
came out.
So you're telling me a Democrat would leave the convention and nobody would know who he is? There's only
Right.
2 fucking parties.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, Obama came out of nowhere. Nobody
yeah.
knew his name until
Oh
all of a
yeah,
sudden
yeah,
they
yeah. They
did.
could have voted for Obama in 2006.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, like, we already know a lot of these people. We know Newsom, we know Kamala, we know Whitmer,
Yeah.
we know,
I mean,
all
the
these.
guy I said is Andy Bashir is actually the least name recognition, but he's probably the best at doing what I almost said their name. The unnamed listener
Mhm.
was recommending. Andy Bashir might be the most skilled at it.
At
Like,
reaching out across
yeah,
the.
being a Democrat in Kentucky and being
So
elected twice as governor in
that's the
Kentucky.
thing.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
big deal. Yeah, so it absolutely is possible, especially with the way media works now. I mean, if you had a candidate step up,
But
go
they just
on
don't get it. They don't get it.
go on Lex Friedman, go on Joe Rogan, go on CNN, do
Yeah.
your go on all. There's platforms out there with hundreds of thousands, millions of people.
Actually provide a fresh voice. We're
Yes.
so fucking thirsty for a fresh
Everybody's
voice.
starved for it. Like,
Yeah.
we're so ready for it.
Yeah.
And there is a huge anti-Trump bias as well, where people don't want to vote for Trump, but they're like, this guy, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a whole I think that there is an opportunity here for a candidate to step up and really just sort of grab the nation's attention. It wouldn't be.
I feel like the problem is
impossible.
too many of them are very toxic. Like, I made a case for Gavin in our last show. I still feel
Yeah.
icky about it.
Yeah.
But Gavin, there's too many people that are like, I ain't trusting the way California is a hellhole and all that shit. Like the
Sure.
bias against it is like insurmountable. And Brashear has no name recognition. Pritzker
You
doesn't
could
either. And
change
Pritzker, they'll
that.
just say Chicago, like, oh, well, there you go. Can't say anything about him,
Yeah, Obama's from Chicago too, though. I
Mhm.
mean, name recognition, I feel like isn't even like you could change that in less
So
than a week.
you're saying Brashear could work
In
because
less than a week,
name
you could
recognition.
everybody
Yeah.
would know who Bashir is.
Yeah, because he won the fucking convention.
Right.
Yeah.
Even before that, like
Yeah.
everybody could know who the fuck that
What
guy
about
is.
people that say that it bypasses the primary process?
Dude, the primary process, there wasn't really
Well,
a
there's never a
primary.
primary with an incumbent. I mean,
No.
there was.
There
There were primaries, but
but
there's
nobody really paid attention to
Right.
it. It's not like the vast majority of Democrats actually, even went out and voted for the primary. I
Right.
didn't.
right.
So no, so people are saying that's would make
Democratic.
or the candidate would then be illegitimate because they didn't go through a primary process. There are ways around that, and I think that
Ways around that in a way that will be palatable.
Yeah, you can do mini primaries.
describe
You
it?
can do an open convention. I'll get into. I just finished reading Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail, which is about the '72 election, which the '68 election was the last election.
That's when Johnson said he wouldn't run. No.
So the '68 election was the last election where there truly was like an open primary.
Yeah, that's when Johnson said he wouldn't
That he
run.
wouldn't run.
Yeah. And like, so just think about that. Like Johnson. Oh, so that's like one of Snell's arguments, though, is to be like, Johnson's not remembered as a hero for stepping down. It's like, well, Johnson walked around with his dick out in the Oval
It's
Office.
very different circumstances. I mean, he took over for Kennedy and then won, and then that's a whole different set of worms, right? But they're politically, the political machinery is there. We just have lost the muscle memory to use it, but it's still possible.
100%.
Yes.
And that's the banality of evil within these like bureaucracies of the party structure.
Sure.
You know what's hilarious? Everybody quotes how George Washington was like, hey, on my exit speech, I'm warning you about political parties. And then you look at like the very next campaigns and it's like the two political parties.
Right.
It's like people talk about that like that's this like lofty goal that we should all aspire to. Immediately nobody listens.
Immediately it was like
right away. Yeah.
All right. Do you have more to say
Israel?
about that, or are we?
No.
I think
Want to talk about tariffs, or
let's go to tariffs. I think
All
go to
right.
tariffs. Yeah.
The Biden administration imposed a tariff on steel and aluminum endpoints. Are you sure this isn't Trump? Isn't this Trump's platform? Oh, okay. Because it's you know what? This is a good deal. So this was, if now I could be wrong, I might be combining two different things. Is this the headline where the commentary is, haha, take that, China, you don't get to dump products off?
Yep.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So what do you want to talk about, dumping first or afterwards?
So actually, I'll just say this. So Trump did impose tariffs on steel from China. However, there was a loophole, and a lot of critics were like, "Yeah, but they can just
You have to use a hole in the sheet.
You just move it through Mexico to here, and then they get around that." And so,
well, you put a wall up, they won't be able to.
No,
we use the Chinese steel to make the wall. Got it.
Right, that's what you got to do. By the way, Chinese steel is not very good.
It's trash. Yeah,
it's shitty steel.
Yes.
Anyway, so there's a 10% tariff on aluminum and 25%, I believe.
Aluminium. I insist on aluminum.
Okay, we're UK based.
I actually said aluminum a minute ago.
So 25% on steel, 10% on aluminium is what the tariff is.
That's a lot, man.
Now, it's a lot. Now,
can we make up for that at home yet? Can we I've seen the steel belt. That's
so the percentage of steel that comes
both
in.
My grandparents worked at a steel mill.
Really?
Yep. Well, both my grandfathers.
My grandfather worked at a grain mill. Yeah, Central Valley. So the percentage of steel
that makes sense. That checks out, Alan.
Yeah, it checks out.
Yeah.
The percentage of steel and aluminium that come through Mexico into the U.S. is relatively small. I want to say it's like 6% of one and like maybe 11% of the other. So it's not a huge amount. We can certainly make up for it. It's not going to cause your steel-based and aluminium-based products to substantially inflate. So
I don't know. That's what they put beer cans in, Alan.
It's true. It's true. We can recycle our way out of it. It's going to be okay.
God. All right. The failures of the recycling system. Okay. Wait.
Do that more?
I just saw an old headline actually.
Oh,
We skipped this one about air defense systems.
yeah,
It's
I was
okay.
fine.
I have it on the big show next week.
Okay.
Okay, just in a moment, it is worth saying that we did. The U.S. agreed to send was it Tomahawk systems to Germany, systems that can fire Tomahawks to
Yeah.
Germany, which are nuclear capable warheads that travel more than 500 kilometers, which was the intermediary missile agreement.
Mhm.
That if you listen to places like antiwar.com, they're like, well, the US backed out of that in 2018. And it's like, yeah, I was pissed that the Trump administration did that too. But the reason they backed out of it was because Russia had already started moving Iskander missiles into Kaliningrad. And since then, Russia has put intermediary nuclear warheads in Belarus. So
Right.
like everyone on the anti-war side that's like blind about it, which
Mhm.
frustrates me because I'm largely anti-war, but like I can't sign off on everything that people like antiwar.com. They just to say, well, Biden did this. That means Russia's gonna. I literally heard Dave DeCamp on antiwar.com today, and I put it in the big show, going, well, now after this, they're going to put intermediate warheads in Kaliningrad. It's like they're in Belarus, they're in Kaliningrad. How do you not fucking know this when you're getting upset about everything the U.S. does? Like, I can't take you seriously when you do that. I still
Yeah.
listen every day, though, so you can listen to us and hear me talk about that.
There you go. There you
That
go.
is a big deal. But what's interesting is if you look at it in Germany, when they polled people in like 2020, they were like 85% of Germans were like, we want to get these nuclear weapons out of Germany. A lot of those were moved there in the after the Cold War as NATO expand. There's a
Right.
whole story about how Germany, a united Germany, was allowed to bring in NATO, and there's this whole memo between Gorbachev and Bush and the head of state or the Secretary of State Baker, where Baker messaged Gorbachev saying, "Do you want a united Germany that's independent with no NATO, or an independent united Germany with NATO?" And Gorbachev said, "We don't want them to move a single inch. We don't want NATO to move a single inch closer to Russian territory or outside of the existing NATO territory." Now that was a memo, and Baker said, "I agree with that." Now that was a memo between the two of them that did not get hashed out. So from Gorbachev's perspective, and modern day Russian historiographers say, "Oh, well, see, that's when they made their policy on this." Like,
Right.
I don't think
That's
how
what
policy
Putin would
works,
say
right?
as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And George Bush was like, "Hey, you went George H.W. Bush was like, "Hey, you went way too far over your skis. We don't want that. We want it to move several feet, several inches, in fact."
Right. Yeah.
So like the American side of this is of that memo gets cited for decades now about how NATO shouldn't have expanded because of that memo. And then during the reunification of Germany, when East and West Germany, after the Cold War was over, after the wall fell, there were two different governments, right? And the head of Western Germany was meeting with Gorbachev, and he was playing very tactfully because he had to do what Washington wanted. Well, he had to keep in mind what Washington wanted, what the US wanted,
Mhm.
and Britain and France, because they all had like say over West Germany, right?
Sure.
And then Russia had say over East Germany. So when he was meeting with Gorbachev after the wall fell about how it should, if it reunites, he got a green light from George Bush first for reunification. Then he was talking to Gorbachev about reunification, and Gorbachev, probably drunk. No, that's Yeltsin. Gorbachev said, no, the head, I forget his name, the head of Kohl, the head of West Germany, said,
Mhm.
"I think that it should be the people of Germany that should decide whether they reunify or not." And Gorbachev said, "I agree with that." And Kohl, the head of West Germany, was very wise and took advantage of that moment and said, "Great, deal done. You didn't say anything about NATO. Now I'm going to go back and talk to my other friends and will allow." So like in that context, the expansion of NATO is Gorbachev's fault. And he fucked up. Like, it's not helpful that he fucked up, but you don't get to say that the US and the rest of NATO decided to expand into East Germany and Germany, into Germany because of a memo between the Secretary of State and Gorbachev that ended with, "Yeah, I kind of agree with that." Like,
Right. That's
yeah, and
you
that's the
can't
memo
form
people
state
always
policy
cite.
based on
People
that.
like antiwar.com always cite when they say we shouldn't be putting NATO weapons into Germany. It's like, well, oh, I didn't say that. I didn't finish the thought. So in 2020, shocker, I didn't finish the thought. In 2020, Germany was polled and they said, we don't want any of these nukes in our country anymore. And after the invasion of Ukraine, they were polled again, and like 60% were like, actually, we want
maybe we
these.
should keep them.
And the people that didn't want them was only like 39%, which is a big number, or 32%.
Still,
Yeah, still a majority or minority. Okay, I'm done with that, and we're done.
So I guess other part of that headline is that Biden did announce in the speech, and we've already kind of announced this previously as a country, that we would be supplying Ukraine with further
supplies,
air defense systems in partnership with like 6 other countries, Italy, some other countries, and that our arms shipments, Ukraine would be prioritized, so they go to the front of the line. So if we had promised to send something to, let's say, Israel, and Ukraine needed it, we would send it to Ukraine first. So that's the rest.
Israel already bombed all of Gaza. It's like, look, man, if you want to go into Lebanon, we're going to give it to Ukraine first now.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of Israel, the Israeli military dropped leaflets instructing all residents in Gaza City to evacuate.
Again?
Yeah, following more targeted evacuation orders as its forces intensify operations in areas where it believes Hamas has regrouped. So a lot of residents of this city are
How do you bomb that much of a place and be like, oh man, we didn't get them? You know what? It's new people that hate you for this.
They're saying they've taken out like 60% of Hamas fighters. I don't know how they come up with that number.
Yeah. Also, 40% is a big number.
Yeah, I think
that's a lot of horror and destruction for you to have 40% left.
Yeah, almost 40,000 people killed so far in Gaza. And a lot of people in Gaza City.
Ministry.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people in Gaza City are like, yeah, fuck you. We're not moving. Last time you told us to move, we moved, then you bombed that place. So it's just. They
also, well, all right.
It continues to be a complete
Israel. The whole they bombed that place. They also said, hey, now we're going to bomb this place. And then they bombed that place. But like, you know, it's a very narrow place and they keep moving their targets and giving them shitty notice, but telling them to move. But like, I don't know. It reminds me of people that don't leave during hurricanes, though. It's like, all right, well.
I think that when we talk about Biden's liabilities,
I do take back the insensitivity of that last statement.
When we talk about Biden's liabilities as the presidential nominee of the Democratic Party for 2024.
Oh, it's convinced thrash. He's like, he's given billions of dollars to Israel. How could I support that? I'm like, man, it's like talking to me 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Like, well, I understand. Did you see that whole exchange we had in the group chat?
I didn't see that. No. Oh, wait. Yeah, you did send that to me. I did see it.
No, it was just right before the show.
Oh, no, I didn't see that. I think that a candidate who would step forward and be less just pro-Israel,
saying there's no red line.
Right. I think a candidate that stepped forward for the
saying you don't get to own me.
Yes. I think that would be huge, especially for the younger demographic.
And maybe at the same time say, I'm not going to bow down to the anti-2A community. Yeah. Like I might not ban all guns. That might be someone that you might get independent voters on, right?
And especially the younger demographic. I think people like, that are, this may be their first election they voted in. Like in the 72 election, there was the whole
youth vote. It was the boomer vote coming to aid.
They were saying like there's 1 million new voters coming online like right now. If you can grab like 60% of them, you're gonna win this election.
What's crazy is that's like when Biden first came into office.
It's true. But McGovern couldn't do it. And part of that was because of his wavering stance on Vietnam, etc. But I think a candidate that could step forward.
McGovern's such a footnote in history.
Yeah, but he's a huge. If you actually, when you read that book, he's a huge part of it. Humphreys was.
I have read it, but it's been years. It's been decades.
Yeah, same for me. I hadn't read it I'd read it before, but it's been a long time.
You're talking about Fear and Loathing 72.
Yes. Yeah.
Would you think that's his second best book?
It's pretty.
It's hard to rank.
It's hard to rank. I mean,
second most popular easily.
I think if you want to read a book that really gets into like wonky politics, but it's actually entertaining to read, like you can't find a better author.
Yeah, so like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is pure gonzo with no importance and significance other than the culture of the time.
Right.
Whereas 72 was about politics. It actually had some direction to it.
There was a lot of substance to it,
That
but
was what it
still
had,
with
substance, yeah.
it was still with the flourish of
Right.
the way Hunter
Yeah.
wrote, which is
You know what?
amazing.
I'm gonna play that next. I'm gonna
Do it.
finish this not 1 inch NATO book, and then I'm gonna get into that.
Cool. All right.
Next headline.
Yeah.
I think it's a return, technically.
Okay. Indian Prime Minister Modi arrived in Moscow for a 2-day visit
Whoa.
with Russian President Putin. It's Modi's first trip to Russia since the invasion of Ukraine. So Modi,
This was not on my radar at all. Thank you for having this.
yeah. So Modi recently won re-election in India. He is sort of a controversial candidate still there. Some of his domestic policies are concerning, and his rhetoric is very concerning. He's been trying to sort of straddle a sort of Russia versus the rest of the West
They're
divide.
not aligned.
Yeah, well, they're
They've
BRICS.
historically been non-aligned. It worked well in the Cold War.
Yeah, exactly. And so this visit was even a little bit like, I wouldn't say like, it definitely wasn't we're best friends forever.
Oh, good. So it wasn't China
It-
unlimited.
No, it wasn't like that. And India,
Well, India has their own relationship with China. Which,
they want to counter that with
Yeah.
Russia, and they're not
Interesting.
happy.
Did Modi do a good job?
I hard to say. At least what you can see on the surface,
aren't
you don't know
that
what's happening behind
Yeah.
closed doors. But what you can say on the surface is he was definitely there doing like his duty and shaking hands and on the red carpet, the whole
Kissing
thing.
babies, shaking.
Right.
Damn it. Kissing
But
hands, shaking babies.
but it's still it's a bit of an it's not exactly icy, but it's not exactly a warm relationship either. But they definitely India is concerned about Russia moving closer to China. And so they want to balance it out. India also wants trade with the West. India has benefited from Russian being sanctioned because they get to buy
Right.
cheap oil and gas from them. Nobody else wants to. So he's balancing a lot of different things here. But yeah, I did find it interesting that there wasn't a lot of coverage about that happening because it seems like a pretty
I'm
big
like
deal.
tragically online, and I did not see any of this. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw this plenty. With your
Yes.
thank you. Iran elected reformist candidate. I heard Dave DeCamp struggle with this. I'm gonna do it in one try.
Okay.
Masood Pezet. I got it.
Okay.
That was okay. 2 tries. Oh, that's easy. Masood Pezeshkian. That's
Yes.
it. Yeah.
That's it.
Masood Pezeshkian in an early presidential. Iran's president died in a helicopter
crash,
with
yes.
like Secretary of State or something, right?
Yes. Defense.
I don't know. I'm laughing because I fuck Iran, but like, and this guy was like, "Oh, we're totally cool with you just like executing all these people. I love it." Yeah. So, rest in piss, bozo. Here comes a new guy. So Iran has a history of having hardliners, and then what do you call the non-hardliners? People that are willing to deal with the West.
Centrists are more
Hardliners,
reformists.
moderates, reformists. That was the word.
Yes.
Hardliners, and then reformists. They sort of vacillate between that. For example, they had the reformists in power when they made a deal with the United States for the nuclear deal,
treaty. Yeah.
and then Trump backed out of it, and they're like, "See, that's what you get for agreeing with the evil empire."
Can't trust those damn Americans.
So they put a hardliner back in,
Yes.
and then they had like a couple of hardliners in a row, I think. And then that guy died in a helicopter. So then they just elected a reformist. It's right there. I couldn't remember that word. It's on paper right in front of us. Digital paper. Masood Pezeshkian in an early presidential election, beating hardliner, doesn't matter, in a second round runoff vote. So this is interesting because it doesn't matter because the Ayatollah is still in charge of Iran.
Yes. Now, and there's questions of whether or not this is truly a free and fair election. By their count, about 49% of the population that could vote turned out.
Yeah. Like they usually fake that, right?
It's actually good turnout for that.
I thought they
It's
normally
usually-
fake it higher.
It's usually, but I think the last election was something like 38% or something like that.
I thought there was a lot of protests that didn't want to vote for this guy.
There were 600,000 votes cast that were just like, we vote for nobody. Essentially,
That's
they voted
what it
for
was.
down
Okay.
ballot, but didn't vote for the president at all.
Cool protest.
So there was some.
Could have wrote in
protest.
none taken.
Yeah, totally. This guy, as you said, is seen as a reformer, but this is a reformer in Iranian terms, in that his opponent, who he beat in the runoff, was saying that he was going to bring Iran back to, you know, women wearing the headscarves
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and all that. And he was saying, no, I don't want to do that. If you'll recall, after the Masa Amini debacle happened and all the protests
It's a whoopsie daisy. It was a debacle. Yeah.
that that happened after that. So in Iranian culture, a lot of women stopped wearing those headscarves that were traditional, you know, based on those protests, and that's sort of been allowed to maintain as a sort of a
Until
status
they feel
quo.
like cracking down on it, right?
Right.
They made thousands of murders an example of how they are not okay with it. But then
They
they've
did.
sort of it. I imagine you look like a punk rocker if you don't wear one. They're
Sure.
like, look at this cool kid that doesn't wear
Yeah.
one. Okay.
Yeah. So this guy was saying, look, I'm not gonna
Goth chicks walking
I'm not
around.
going to try
Yeah.
to go back to that. We're going to maintain that status quo. As you said, you know, the Ayatollah still is the, you know, supreme leader in that country. Although he is saying that he is willing to work with the West and try and overcome some of these sanctions. Iran's economy is been So do you the rial, the Iranian currency?
Yeah.
So when was the deal signed? I think it was 2016, 2015. Right? 2015 was when the nuclear arms treaty
I
was
thought it was
signed.
2014.
Okay, 2014, 2015, whenever it was. The Iranian rial was the ratio to US dollars was 35,000 to 1. Since this guy got elected, it went from 610,000 to 1 to like 603,000 to 1. So it has improved, but imagine in the space
Wait, that's
of
to what? Is that to a dollar? What was that to?
to a dollar, yeah. So imagine the space of like 9 or 10 years, you go from 35,000 to 1 to over 600,000
All right.
to 1.
And
That
then
is
marginally improve.
but that is a massive, like, the economy just is in the
Wow.
shitter. So
Yeah.
part of the reason that that people are surmising that the Ayatollah even allowed this to happen is because he understands that
Because he
something
didn't
has
have to
be
let
done.
this guy run
No,
too, right?
no.
That's
No,
what
of
you're
course
getting
not.
at, right?
Yeah, yeah. So he understands that the economy's in the toilet, and this guy maybe can try to make some moves to alleviate some of that
Can I tell you
trauma.
a phrase that's always bothered me?
Yeah,
You've seen Mad Max, right?
it's been a while, but
Yeah.
yes.
It's been a while. Oh, have you seen Mad Max 2? Yeah. That's a lot of people think of that as like that. Okay. Anyways, I'm not getting into that. I haven't seen the new one yet, but I've heard, even though it bombed in theaters, that
Mhm.
it did a really great job because it's still the original director. I'm completely blanking on the famous guy who made that whole franchise. It's still his vision. It's connecting literally all the storylines together, including George something, right? Anyways, it's connecting
George Miller.
Yeah. It's connecting all the storylines, including that last one with the pretty girl
Yes.
and the silver guy with the guitar, where they huff paint. So there was a phrase in Mad Max 2 Road Warrior where Lord Humongous,
That's a great name.
the warrior of the wasteland, aka the Ayatollah of rock and rolla. That's always bugged me. I don't know what the fuck that means. I feel like there was a wrestler that went by that, but I'm also probably confusing that with the Iron Sheik.
Sure. The Ayatollah of rock and roll is pretty good.
It's confusing. I don't know what it means. It's not rock and roll. Rock and rolla is you're a rock and roller, aka a rock and rolla if you're speaking with some sort of soft R,
Sure.
the A, right? I don't understand what the Ayatollah of rock and roller is. That doesn't make sense like that. It doesn't rhyme. Ayatollah. Oh, you say it with like a British accent. Ayatollah of rock and roller. That's not a British accent.
That's not at all.
We got people over there that listen to the show. I'm embarrassed now. Did you see that post? Why do I suck so bad at names today? My brain pills aren't working. One of our best listeners, he was like, I'm on vacation and it's a beautiful day. And he made a post with all these beautiful pictures of him going to the countryside and the seaside village. And it was just beautiful. And in his caption, he tagged None Taken. He's like, I'm listening to None Taken on the train.
Oh, that's awesome.
I was like, well, oh, wow. Like things like that just like make this all
It's
always worthwhile. I mean, at a minimum,
amazing.
I love the fact that I get to talk to you so much a week. Like Like, I'm glad.
Oh yeah,
we've been
we're
friends
having a good
so
time
long.
for sure.
I'm glad
Yeah,
we've been friends for so long. Like, I feel so close to you because we get to talk so much.
I
And
agree.
like even our last show, man, just getting to work through all that shit with Addie was so like beneficial for me.
Yeah.
But to have listeners being able to say things like that, it's like, man, you guys rule. I don't
That's
know.
awesome. It's awesome.
I think
mean,
I've had a couple too many TIE fighters.
you know, we show up every week and do this for a reason. It's, you know, and part of it, huh?
Go ahead.
Part of it is, you know, because we get to hang out and talk to each other,
Yes. Yes.
which we would do anyways, or we would like to do anyways.
Not as much though, right?
But
Like
not as
that's
much.
the nature of like humans. We
Yeah.
sort of drift in different ways. We've always kept in touch, but like
Right.
this has been amazing for our
It
friendship.
has been.
Look at Nick's headline. It has to do with England.
Oh yeah,
England.
I think it's yours.
Ah, fuck. No, I said
Oh yeah, you did. Okay.
Kazakhstan.
The Labour Party won a landslide majority in the UK.
You said one twice today.
Won a landslide majority in the UK's snap election, ending 14 years of Conservative Party rule and shifting British politics left of center.
So there's been a lot of shit about this because people are like, well, the Tories, they have to put things in American terms. The Conservative Party, the Tories, right?
Tories, yes.
Okay. The Tories, the Conservative Party, they won 30% of the vote, but they got like no seats in parliament, like very minimal new seats in parliament.
They got like 140.
Something. It's
out of 650.
It's a big number. Yeah. And the Labour Party won. If you look at percentages of the vote, the Labour Party won the largest majority, which would be a plurality, but they didn't win a true majority of all of the vote. But because of the fact that they do a first past the poll voting system where once one candidate has the majority in their district, they win that district and nobody else's votes matter.
Right. Because
Because of that system, they ended up with more members of parliament. And they're talking about reforming it. And so conservatives in England, so I made a post. I had a post where it was like, conservatives were able to do this in France. The Labour Party, or the left in France and the left in England were able to do all of these elections in such short notice.
Right.
America can do this with months to spare. Put a new candidate up, and people were like, "Well, they all cheated." And it's like, at the end of the day, the Labour Party won a plurality still. Even with that chicanery, they still won a plurality. And if you want to get mad at France, or do we have anything about France? We talked about it last week.
We talked about it last week.
Okay. If you want to get mad at France, they were smart about saying, hey, if you don't want the right to win, drop out. And they agreed to do so. And people got to vote for who they wanted to vote for. The people on the left hate the center in France. Many people on the left still voted for the right because not just horseshoe theory, but a lot of people on the left are anarchists. And they're like, well, these people on the right are closer to me than the people in the center. Like sorry, that's how campaigning works. Like that's still better than our bullshit two parties where we're stuck with old men.
And also how their political machinery is designed to work. So you can say that Macron cheated, but he used the system that was in place as it is to win. And I
don't feel like it was even
voted
in a shady way. It was all transparently. Everybody knew that. They said that after the first round. They're like, he's going to have to talk to these people and see if they'll drop out if they're going to have a chance at winning. And they agreed to do so. People are like, well, the people's vote didn't matter. In the second round, they voted for someone and they had a chance to vote for your people and they don't like what you're offering. And at the end of the day, they still have to compete with them because you're going to make a coalition government. Same with England, right? Like there are Tories that are there, and the
so in England, I think so. First of all, what you have to understand is that the Labour Party over the last few years has shifted very much to the center.
Great point. I hope you say everything I'm thinking of. I have a tip.
So they've shifted far more centrists, and if you look at the economy, which is always the economy, stupid, right? The economy in the UK, if you take out London, the rest of the country is not doing well at all.
They have their version of the American Rust Belt, the Midwest.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And so people who might have previously voted Tory were not happy with what the Tories have done for them economically over the last decade and a half. And we're like, fuck these guys. And now this Labour Party is less scary because they've moved more to the center,
Right.
so we can vote for them and not be
So
concerned that they're going to
conservatives
do
that would have voted for the Tories felt
right,
more comfortable voting for the moderate center
right.
rather than the conservatives Tories that have disappointed them.
Yep. I
Because
mean,
the Tories,
Bre-
they said, I know what you're about to say. They said, let's do a Brexit
yep.
because we don't want all of these dirty Muslims that are in Europe coming into our country and taking our
Yes.
jobs.
Right.
And then in the meantime, they've had an increase in immigration because the Tories were like, well, we'll have plenty of immigration if we bring in like wealthy Pakistan.
Essentially H-1B visa type things.
Yes, if we bring in people that are like, and
Doctors
at
and
the end of the
lawyers
day,
and
they were
everything.
like, well, I don't want these doctors and lawyers from outside of our country anyway. So we still had an increase in immigration. And like, that's just like a niche example, but it allowed conservatives to vote for the center because
Mhm.
the center was different than the conservatives that had disappointed them
Yep.
without being a
Scary.
far left party, which
Right.
tells us a lot about having fucking big tent Democrat party in the US.
Yes.
Like,
Yes. I mean, and so just realistically, Brexit has been a disaster for the UK. It was a
oh,
bad
it's
idea.
over. Like,
It's
dude, can I do a whole 6-minute Peter Zion in 1 minute or
Sure.
less?
Yeah, do it.
So he had a video where he was like, look, if you go back to the Industrial Revolution, England became like first of all, it was the empire. So
Mhm.
everything came back and it brought a bunch of wealth back to England. And
Right.
that wealth, combined with discovering things that led to the Industrial Revolution, allowed it to be an industrial hub. And it was the first place industry ever happened with
Yeah.
coal and railroad and all that kind of stuff that comes with that. And then Germany started doing that too, and America started doing that too. So they weren't the only place doing that anymore, but then they became the financial hub of the globe.
Yep.
And then in about the 70s, they stopped being the main financial. Well, no, sorry, I think around the 70s when they started being like the financial hub of the world. And that stopped being as important around the turn of this last century. And then they did Brexit. And it's like, it's over. You can still be something. I don't know what it is, but they're gonna have to go through.
Yeah.
I,
It's
I did a
it's gonna
bad job summarizing.
it's going to be a rough patch for sure.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, even if you look at Brexit was largely manipulated by social media. Like there are a lot of post
It was a
Brexit
few months
studies.
before Trump, and it told us a lot. It was the
Yeah.
same thing, right? It
Shit was
was,
happening on Facebook primarily.
and it was people that were feeling left out of the process and
Yep.
cut out of the deal that
And
everybody
people
else.
who were anti-immigrant. And the funny thing is, a lot of the people who voted for Brexit and were so anti-immigrant were in places where there was literally no immigration. Like
Yeah, I live in
there's
Tennessee, dog.
yeah, exactly.
We have more
Exactly.
Californians coming here than Mexicans, but they're like,
Right.
"Let's shut down the border."
Yeah. So that's been a complete disaster. So people, I would say rightfully have kind of decided to move away from that party, and you see the evidence of that in this election.
Yeah.
All right. We can skip this next one because
Okay. Well, can you try to say the name? I said okay, Alan. I earlier said Masood Pezeshkian. I said Masood Pezeshkian. Can you
Yeah.
say the name of the new
Yes.
Labour Party Prime Minister of England?
Labour Party leader Keir Starmer officially took office as UK Prime Minister after former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak
They're just
acknowledged
making up names over there.
defeat and step down. So that happened.
Right.
All right. We got a
You'd
couple
think where the
more.
language came from. They wouldn't have names like Keir and Rishi. And you look at Keir Starmer, he's white as the day is long. He's got blonde hair. He's tall. See that
You know-
picture with Nancy Pelosi?
When I first heard the name, I thought it was a woman. I was like, oh,
I did
Keir.
too. I did too. That's
I
how
wonder
much
what she looks like.
But doesn't that also tell you something that this person that like if Keir Starmer can win in England, I think name some Democrat that wins the convention in August might be able to beat
Absolutely.
liability Donald Trump. I say it every week, and people are probably tired of it. Donald Trump can't avoid a rake on the floor. He's going to step on everything you put in his path. Just put someone up that could be like, look at me. Oh, whoa, whoa.
I can move around the race.
Yeah, I have lateral movement. Like,
all right. Microsoft and Apple stepped down from their OpenAI board positions and
Whoa.
increasing antitrust scrutiny in the artificial intelligence sector. So Microsoft, after the whole Sam Altman debacle where they fired him, and then Microsoft's like, well, come over here then and you can work for us.
OpenAI fired
Altman, the board.
and then they tried to hire him, but then they had positions along with Apple. But it's because they have their own AIs.
Well, but Microsoft, I believe, is like a 50% or
Thought so too.
49% investor in OpenAI.
So are they
Um,
still investors, but they don't have a board position?
yes.
So they'll try to be activist investors if they want to change anything, but they won't have
Oh,
to be the board.
yeah. I mean, they're behemoths.
All right,
They don't
go
have
ahead.
to have a board position at all.
Oh.
So after the Sam Altman thing happened, is when Microsoft wanted a person on the board, and I don't even think they were a voting member. I think they were just like an observing member of the board. Apple actually didn't have one, but they were going to do something similar. And then because of antitrust
What's her name?
concerns,
What's that lady's name?
Lena Khan.
Yeah.
So because of that, they're like, okay, we're just going to step away. We don't need to do that anymore. We don't need to be in the room. We have enough power. So that's essentially that headline.
Okay.
We can skip this next one unless you want to hit it.
No, go ahead. Do you want to do one? I'm tired of reading, honestly.
Yeah. Let's see. So just 4 NASA volunteers concluded a 1-year mission on Earth, simulating life inside a base on Mars.
Yeah.
So that was cool. NASA's done stuff like that before. They like 3D printed this whole thing, and they had them have like a 22-minute delay in communicating with the outside world, just to sort of simulate what it would be like to actually live on Mars and the stressors that it would the stress that it would.
So there's no big takeaways from it yet,
No.
but they finished it and
They did it.
going
Yeah.
through the data and everything about it. Okay,
Right,
interesting.
right.
That'll be interesting for them to know. Did you know one time the astronauts they were trying to do a thing where they were testing this was going to be a game where I was going to have a bunch of astronaut facts, but I couldn't come up with a fake one. All I had was crazy astronaut facts.
Okay.
So they were going up into space, and they were going to test space food. I don't know what you call that. Astronaut
Like
food,
freeze dried stuff. Yeah.
whatever, right? Is to see if like it was palatable, if it worked, all of that stuff, right?
Right.
But you needed like, you need a test environment for that, right?
Right. Sure.
One of the astronaut brought up a 2-day-old hoagie.
Oh, God. Did it have mayo on it? Because
You know
that's
what?
not.
Let me go down here. Hold on. I have it in
That can't be good.
I have it a tour. An astronaut once packed a 2-day-old corned beef sandwich.
Oh, God.
This ruined the purpose of the flight, which was to test different foods in space.
Oh. Can you imagine the smell?
Yeah,
You can't get away from it. That's awful.
Fucking like just you think of the astronauts being like the best in brag.
I know, it's like-
schools brag. They're like, we've had 8 astronauts from the University of Tennessee. That's a fact. They've either had 6 or 8 astronauts. It's like on their brag sheet of things from.
Right.
It's like, yeah, what you mean? These guys bring up old sandwiches into space? They're like, well, what if I don't like literally? The guy's thought was like, well, what if I don't like the food? Like, what if
Of
it's
all
not-
the sandwiches,
what if I don't
to
like
bring?
it and we don't what if we starve because they gave us bad food?
Corned beef has got to be the worst option. Like, I can't. That's awful.
He brought up a Reuben, basically, right? Didn't have sauerkraut. That's the only thing missing.
Jesus.
I fucking love a Reuben, by the way. Only American invented sandwich. Well, not the only. I think it's one of the only American invented. It was invented at a card game in Kansas City.
Oh, well, the original sandwich was also invented at a card game, I believe,
Maybe I'm
by
combining.
the Earl of Sandwich.
Earl of Sandwich. Hold on.
He was,
I am quoting. Do you remember that movie Quiz Show?
Yeah.
What have we here, Charlie? Remember when his dad opens the TV? Whoa, Quiz Show is a great show, man. Quiz Show is a great movie.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Mr. Stemple, you have 21. What am I doing here? Oh,
Earl of Sandwich.
or the sandwich story. I learned that from that movie.
Oh, from Quiz Show.
Quiz Show.
Yeah, I think he was playing cards or something. He didn't want to stop to like have lunch.
Quiz
So he was just like,
Show Reuben sandwich. There we go. Well, that's 3 minutes. That's way too long. You know what? Reuben sandwich scene. Fuck it. We won't take 3 minutes. Ain't no way this takes 3 minutes.
So Sandra says whatever on her mind.
And you've been married how long?
5 years. You?
Oh, no. I'm supposed to be fixed up with this girl on the cover of the new Harper's Bazaar, but, well, you know how that is.
Yeah.
Waldorf salad for you, Mr. Van
Oh,
Dorn.
thank you.
And a Reuben sandwich.
Thank you. So,
Oh,
what do you know about this grand jury investigation, Charlie?
Charlie.
oh, I remember Dan mentioned something about this, but it was awesome. He talks so fast in that bit. And he's really the one to talk. More water?
Let's get to that sandwich.
How long have you been with us? Postpone the inevitable.
I'm wondering.
Dad!
Are you, son? We share you at home.
Please.
Swamp.
Sure. It's the Reuben.
There we go.
Reuben sandwich is the only entirely invented sandwich.
Oh,
Won the National Sandwich Contest 2 years ago.
A salient point. Who invented it?
Reuben K. at a poker game in Omaha.
I knew there was a K in Nebraska.
I said Kansas, so fuck me.
You're close enough.
It's not enough to win Jeopardy, Alan.
That's true. That's true.
Or 21.
21.
Your turn, bud.
All right. The U.S. economy added 206,000 jobs in June, just above estimates of 200,000. Meanwhile, the unemployment rate rose to 4.1%.
God, these sounds like good numbers, right? Like if Joe Biden, if it wasn't Joever already,
Right.
like if he didn't go out there and call Zelensky Putin, like these are good things to tout.
Well, so here's the thing. Just so I keep hearing, people on Biden's side come out and saying like, judge me by the results of my administration, etc. And I would say like, and obviously I'm biased here, but I would say that he's gotten some things done as a president that I think are good for the country, and he's done some good things. I would say he's been a pretty good president. However,
That'd be a great one-term president.
Yes,
probably one of the best one-term presidents.
Yes,
he hasn't been impeached.
No, none of that's happened. So yeah, that's great. He's been a great president. But it doesn't mean that he will be the best person to run against Trump in 24, and we all know what that means. All right, just real quick. Also, the CPI rose 3% in June from a year ago, below estimates of 3.1. It's the lowest level in over 3 years, but still above the 2% target. Anyway, all of that is to say that it is likely we will see a rate cut by the Fed, I think, in the next quarter, unless other things.
I remember when we were like, once that rate comes in, Biden's going to win. It don't even matter no more, man. Like, it's Joever. It's never been so Joever.
It's never been so Joever. All right. Other news. We have Kenya. So
Kenya, dig it. That's my Shaq impression.
We talked about the riots that happened a few weeks ago. People were upset about the new tax that was going to be imposed on the populace.
These headlines were sent in from Man on the Street in Kenya.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so the president said, "Okay, I'm going to pull that legislation. I'm not going to sign that. We're not going to do that."
Did I cut you off too much? Do you want to just
no
sign that?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. You think people were able to pay attention despite my interruption? I've just had too many TIE fighters.
Yeah, I think we're
go ahead. Sorry.
So the president was like, "No, okay, we're not going to do that." And so things have sort of calmed down. The president has now dissolved his cabinet, so basically fired everybody and says we're going to start over.
2024, Kenya. We're going to fire everybody and replace them with people that aren't corrupt, right?
There you go. That's the idea. Kenya is a very interesting country. I got to know a man from Kenya very well because of my work. I was essentially like standing next to him for like 10 hours a day for months at a time during the COVID time period.
You're not supposed to stand 6 feet apart, I hope, Alan.
No, not at all.
Oh, no.
Anyways, it was fine. Neither of us got sick. But there's like, I don't remember how many languages, but he told me there's like so many dialects of languages spoken.
Well, so our man in Kenya, what's that?
Man.
Our man Charlie, was it? Our man Friday. Our man Friday in Kenya. I think that's a colonialist term.
Well, His Girl Friday is a movie.
No, there's a man Friday is it's, you know what? It's an old reference. It's not worth explaining.
Okay.
So we got a guy. We got a guy.
Yeah, we got a guy.
None taken as a guy in Kenya, and I intend to leverage it as long as there's interesting things to talk about from there, which I don't think is going to stop. Our guy in Kenya had something to do with what you were saying. I forgot.
So all the languages and people sort of coming together.
So he was telling me something that I made a note about. Actually, it's right here. He was telling me that a TV commentator, he was watching the news. He was like, a TV commentator said, if you want your planes, because this whole thing is about corruption, right?
Yes.
So like they are actively right now breaking down generational norms in Kenya. Like Gen Z in Kenya is actually getting shit done, trying to counter corruption in their country. And like their first president was like a real man of the people. He would like dip away from security and go to bars to be like, like I'm
I'm
one
out
of
here
you.
with the
Like,
people.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then this guy, I think if I understand it right, he is sort of like the successor to him.
Mhm.
But as soon as he got the job, he was like jet setting and,
Oh, flexing.
yeah. So the people weren't happy about that naturally. And, but that guy's like, okay, fine. So you're saying the problem is corruption? I hear you. Gen Z actually got to him. They hear him, or he hears.
Mhm.
That's what he's saying, at least. And he's shown it by saying, if you think everybody's corrupt here, I'm still in charge, but I'm getting rid of everybody in the government that you're accusing of all this corruption and burning down buildings over, right?
Mhm.
A TV commentator said, if you want your planes, cars, fancy houses, and clothes, there's a show for that, MTV Cribs. If you want that, go be a rapper and have those things. But in government, you are our servant. That guy needs to come to America and teach us a thing or two about how to change government. Like they are putting forward a formula that has very recently seemed to be effective, and I'm so optimistic about this. Like,
That's awesome.
yeah,
I think so. Kenya has a lot of things going for it. They have a lot of natural resources that geographically they're in a really
there are less
great
open
place.
points of influence in the continent, dude.
I think yeah, so anything positive happening there politically is awesome. That's great
That's
to
good to
hear.
hear.
Great to see.
Yeah, and it's cool
Yeah.
to hear that you have like someone that that you're like you have like a
Yeah.
tie to pulling for their success as well.
Oh, dude. He was always like, dude, I'll take you to Kenya. Like, I'll show you around. You won't want to leave. And I was like, I
Oh
think you
wow, that's
probably are
cool.
right.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's been all over the world. He lived in Dubai for years and
All
he's
around the world.
all around.
Oh, I'm singing Sugar Ray. Please go on.
All right. What else do we have here? Oh, okay. So this transplant story. So I guess there's a controversial new method of gaining organs to be used for
Oh my god, I'm
transplants.
so glad you're doing this.
So what's the actual term? Let me pull up the actual
It's
article.
3 letters.
Yeah, it's RSV, but it's called
RSV's no.
no. Nor
Remember when we were like, it's not COVID anymore, it's RSV, and then nobody got it and we didn't care?
it's NRP.
Okay.
Normothermic regional perfusion.
NRP works.
Yeah, NRP. So essentially what they do is you have to let the person die. So the person has,
So by definition, they've proven that there is no longer blood circulation. Like the
well,
heart
all right.
is
So
not
before
pumping.
that though, so they've had a severe brain injury or they've had a stroke or something like that, and so their brain activity is essentially non-existent,
Deceased.
so deceased, right? And so their body is still functioning, so the heart is still pumping blood, it's still moving. However, the person can't live if they're taken off of life support, and the
Yeah, but
family.
they do allow them to die and then continue that function through this.
So
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
so the family decides, okay, we're going to pull the plug. Essentially, they're essentially dead. They're brain dead, right? So they pull the plug. They have to wait until the body actually dies.
Until you can do what you happened with anyone dies and say we have confirmed them dead, and then they
Yes,
restart the heart,
essentially, yes. They
like
restart. They
like
put them.
Motley Crue, kickstart
They
my heart.
they put them back on life support and allow the blood to continue to be pumped through the body to maintain the viability of the organs. Then what they do is they go in, they cut off the blood supply to the brain just to ensure that there can't be any possible brain activity happening again, and then they harvest the organs to be transplanted. So bioethicists are saying that some are saying that this is unethical, and that
Yeah, especially when wait, hold on. I mean, I'm just people will hate me for this. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry in advance, but it's a good song, okay? Like
it is a good song. It's a good song.
when so basically like they do get a chance to be dead,
Mhm.
but then they kickstart their heart, and then they're like, cool, they've already died. And now we can keep the blood flowing so that we can maintain the organs so that we can take the organs out
Yes.
in a condition that they can be used in another person, right?
Yes.
Everything up to this point sounds a little iffy, but okay on paper, except for the fact that they have to go out of their way Like when they've gone to do it before, they're like, turns out the brain activity is coming back online. Kind of sounds like we realived this person. Like, I know that I probably sound like Terry Schiavo's husband, but like they Terry Schiavo reference in 2024. What the fuck am I doing? But like, do you get what I'm trying to say though?
Yes.
Like it gets to. Are you doing better with just telling your story yourself? Can you explain what I'm doing? Or
So if they didn't clamp off that blood supply to the brain, and then suddenly you had brain activity again,
they might have come back to life. It seems
so. Then you
like
have
they might have come up with a way to bring people back to life. No,
then you have the ethical question of whether or not this person now has functional brain activity and
but
is
like,
alive.
but is it functional brain activity like Terry Schiavo, where it's like, well, nobody lives like this. You got to like continue to run the machines for them because they are only living because the machine's doing it for them.
Yes, yeah. I don't have a problem with this at all.
I
In
know. I
fact,
probably don't want to be realived, right?
no. If this
And I
was
kinda
if I
have
was
pretty
if
well.
I was if I'm
I
the
kind of like
guy
being alive again, though, Alan.
if I'm the guy on the gurney that's lost brain activity for weeks,
Like a long time.
yeah, then I am totally fine with you clamping off the blood supply and harvesting any organs I have that are viable. I probably fucked them up pretty well already, but maybe.
You want this liver? Go ahead.
Actually, in this story, the liver, they were so disappointed because when they pulled the liver, it wasn't viable. It was diseased and fatty. They said,
Oh, fatty liver. That makes me think of Don and Mike.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what else. Oh, you had the story about the Trump doctor. So that essentially you talked about it last Tuesday show about a Trump security guard and somebody else like broke into his
Yeah,
former doctor's
I
office.
mentioned it on the big show that I put this in here. So thanks
Yeah.
for sticking with it. Is it worth talking about? I mean, this is a story from 2018 that I don't remember, and apparently I have
remember at all.
TDS. If you listen to Kevin from Nashville,
Yeah. So these two guys just went into Trump's former doctor's office and like said, we're seizing his records. And apparently they had some sort of memo from his current doctor, like Ronnie or something.
dude, they
But
had 6 years to correct this reporting. I
yes,
think that this is accurate, right?
yes, but they didn't have. So HIPAA requires that you have a special form to share a patient's
You don't
medical.
think bodyguards have that, do you?
They didn't have that in this case, and so it was essentially this was an illegal transfer of medical records.
It's a HIPAA violation.
It was a HIPAA violation.
It's a HIPAA violation.
There you go. That's a good one.
I mean, it's either that or it's Joever. I think it's Joever works.
I think Jover's pretty good.
Okay.
All right. This last one, just real
Kind of
quick.
shoehorned it in a lot, though.
This last one, real quick, is they found a way to essentially wire up a prosthesis.
Dude, this is huge.
Yeah.
This is literally Star Wars level of prosthetic limbs functioning off of. So wait, fill it all in. I'm going to do broad strokes. So prosthetics to this day, they've been like the leg that you pop off and it's just like a big piece of plastic. And then they've created prosthetics that are like clumsy, but like you can use a muscle either next to it or another part of your body to control it. But it's like, it doesn't connect with the mind that makes you think that your toe is on the edge of a stair, right?
Yes.
But so like it's a fun word to try to say. I think I've said it enough that I've learned how to say it. Nope, didn't. Man, too many TIE fighters. Shut up, Alan. Too many TIE fighters. Proprioception. I said
yes.
So which is like, you don't have to close your eyes to it, but it kind of helps. Like knowing where your limbs are within space, right? Like people talk about your 5 senses. Bullshit. There's a lot more than 5 senses. One of them is the sense of where your arms or where your extremities are within the space without you like having to watch it, right? Like I'm a bad dribbler because I have bad proprioception despite my melanin deficiency. Not only because of it.
Not only. White man can't jump.
Dude, all I can do, I can dribble like hell if I'm looking at it, but you asked me to run and that's a lot. Like I can't look at it while I'm running because I'll run into you. Like maybe it's bad practice, but
we used to call it coordination. But
yeah. So proprioception. So I want to say they had like dog shit proprioception on previous high-end prosthetics, but they came up with something that you're going to describe more in detail that brought the proprioception up to like 30%, which
20.
seems 20%, which is like enough of a threshold that like, you know how like your vision, you don't really see everything you're looking at, your mind fills in the rest.
Right.
It's kind of like that, where it's like they got enough of the proprioception. People that have gotten these prosthetics installed have said that it jumps the gap enough that their mind fills it in enough. They literally feel like when their toe touches the edge of a stair, they feel like they have their limbs back. They feel exactly like they have their limbs again.
Yes.
Please talk about the details of how, though, because it's
Okay.
only on below the knee.
Currently, yes. All right. So prior to this, the best technology was essentially robotic. So there was a computer inside the prosthetic that sort of manipulated the movement so that you could move around obstacles, you could go upstairs,
So in
downstairs,
that
down.
case, it's like you're doing something, but the robot's doing it, and you're a part of the
Right.
robot, and that's not. But there's a gap between you and the robot doing it, so it's happening
Right.
to you almost, right?
Yes. You don't. It's clumsy, and if you actually watch people using those prosthetics, it's obvious. It's visually obvious. They move slower. It's not as smooth the motion. We don't think about it, but like when you're walking down a slope or up a slope or upstairs, everything that your brain is doing to like know where your foot is supposed to be and how the angle of
It's
your
happening
ankle
automatically.
is just happening behind the scenes. So they were using robotics to accomplish the same task essentially, and as I said, they're super clumsy.
I think what you're describing is called a subcortical walking reflex.
Okay. So this new technology is essentially they connected it to the nervous system, and typically in a muscle like your calves and the way you manipulate your foot, your toes, etc. So
You don't have to think about walking.
you don't have to think about it; it just happens. And typically there's like a push-pull sort of thing. So you have one muscle that expands and one that contracts, and that changes how the movement happens.
But again, like if you think about things like this is such a big deal because it's happening below the waist.
Yes.
Like if you think about your limbs above the waist, anytime you move your arm, you're thinking about it. You might be somewhat on autopilot, but like upper limbs are largely voluntary reflexes. Like I want this, I'm reach out, I grab it, I bring it to me. We're good at it, so you do it like it's easy. But when you walk, you don't think about it. You think, I want to walk there. And all the push-pull muscles happen without you telling them to fire.
Right.
Okay.
And so like when you're walking upstairs, you naturally will tilt your ankle, your foot up to go to the next stair and then
While
down.
adjusting your spine and all
the
these
whole
other
thing.
things so that you're properly balanced and all
So
of that.
essentially there's those
coordination.
those two inputs, right? There's the contract and there's the expand, right? And so what they've done is essentially hardwire that into your already to your neurons, right? And so that now your brain can communicate with this prosthetic, and they're saying like 20% of the amount of information that would normally happen without a prosthetic with your normal limbs, and yet the difference between just that 20% is massive, and you can actually see it. You can watch people move around obstacles, go upstairs, go down a slope.
It walks downstairs and over the neighbor's dog. It's log.
like a Trump walking down or was it Biden walking down the ramp? I can't remember.
It was Biden walking up the steps. It was
Up
Trump
the steps,
walking down the
walking
ramp.
down. Yeah.
And holding the glass of water.
Right.
Like me drinking this TIE fighter.
So you can actually see it and even time it. So people move faster and more smoothly. It's less awkward. It's a huge step. If you compare the two side by side,
This is our last news story of the week. It might be outside of like political impact and all that other stuff in terms of like scientific advancement.
It's a big
you
deal.
Can't undersell this enough. Can't oversell this enough. This is a huge fucking deal. And if I understand it right, they basically found a way to like jump the gap of the knee, right? They were like, let's get past the knee and get all this stuff talking to the brain, right?
Yep. Yeah. Really cool stuff.
And when I say how harder those muscles are than upper extremities, it means that you already did the hard part. All the other stuff should be easy compared to this.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. All right, let's get into media.
What you been watching, buddy?
So I actually have two books here. I've already talked about a lot on this show, so I'm not going to go.
You've been doing Hell's Angels too?
Yeah.
With Mr. Barker?
Yeah.
Hell's Angels probably is second most famous now that I think about it, because that was what I read after Fear and Loathing. I love that, man.
It's
The way they
really
treat those people at Bass Lake. Oh boy.
Oof, yeah. So actually, what had happened was Underworld podcasts have been doing a bunch of shows
Stuff on the
about
Hell's Angels.
well, biker gangs generally. So
Yeah.
biker gangs in Canada.
Yeah, I've listened to those. They've been really fun. Underworld podcast. I have no fear of telling listeners to go spend some time.
No, it's a good time over there.
Complimentary to none taken.
So I remembered Hell's Angels. I'd never read it, but I was aware of it. And so when they were talking about this, I was like, oh, I should probably go check that out. It seems like that would be a good thing to read. And when I put in Hunter S. Thompson,
It's in your neck of the woods too, up in
I know
everything.
Yeah, it's like Oakland. They mentioned El Cerrito,
Do they?
Vallejo. Yeah, Vallejo, Richmond. They're all from. It was all around here. Actually, I drove by a Hell's Angels bar in Oakland a couple of weeks ago.
You sure you're cool talking about that?
Yeah,
I talked about a family member and their motorcycle affinity, and I regret it.
They're still out here. Anyways, so Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail is an excellent book. It gets really in depth into the politics of the 72 election, but it's Hunter S. Thompson, so it's entertaining and it goes off on so many rants.
Yeah.
It's a great read. It's a lot of fun. And I moved on. I haven't finished Hell's Angels yet, but a really great story if you just want to. So I think the Hell's Angels, I think a lot of people sort of just look on them currently, at least, as just sort of this these bad guys in a gang who, did drugs, sold drugs, things like that. But really, they were part of like a counterculture movement in the 60s. They were an offshoot of sort of post World War II, which I think you don't really you don't see that now, right? And so
especially
these guys,
with Sons of Anarchy and all
right. Yeah. So these guys were fucking crazy. Yeah, they got in fights. Yeah, they hit people with fucking bike chains and tire irons. Yeah, they got drunk and they did crazy drugs. Yes, all of that's true. But they also had sort of a cultural ethos of who of like who they were, and they were
they want to be security at a Rolling Stones concert. And
no, they were just
during Sympathy with the Devil.
They're anti-establishment, essentially, is what they were. And they were very much part of an offshoot of that counterculture movement that was happening in the 60s.
Yeah, there was a lot of people that felt left out.
Yep.
The way,
and these guys were just willing to go on the very fringe of that edge. And so it's
whether you admire the results, like what we know historically of, like, when people that document the effects of who they were, you can admire the type of person that not admire. There's a feeling that we all can relate to about. It is relatable. I don't know. I lost myself.
It's a sense of rebelliousness and fuck this system.
That we all can connect to.
Right. And I'm going to create my own culture outside of this, regardless of whatever the fucking man tells me I'm supposed to be or supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting read. I highly recommend.
Yeah.
Both of those books are free on Audible, so you can just download it.
And that one in 20 years either. I'll you know what? Damn it. And they're not that long, huh? How many hours are they?
I think like maybe like 18 or 20.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And also I would say the voice actor is excellent, and he does both of them.
Get it before it's all AI, Thank God these older ones.
He's really good. He's really good.
Okay, great. Great. I watched a couple of movies I want to talk about. One I'm more excited about the other. Although I recommend both of these.
Okay.
You have Netflix, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
Have you seen Godzilla -1?
It's on my list, but I haven't yet. No.
I've been wanting to watch it, but when I suggested it, Natasha said no. And I was like, I get it. You don't want to watch Godzilla. Like they knew what they were doing when they made this, and it wasn't going to be like a date night movie for most people, right? Yeah. So I've watched it over the course of a few evenings while she's back there making dinner, and I'm putting on, fine, if the food's not ready, I guess I'll watch Godzilla. So Godzilla -1 was made with a $15 million budget in Japan. And it's called -1 for a reason, because it's taking it back from the first episode of Godzilla. It's a prequel, sort of, right?
Okay.
-1. And the opening scene is a kamikaze pilot landing on an island, an outpost island, and finding out that the people of this island had found out that the natives there have warned them of this monster that
creature,
comes out
right.
of the water. Yeah. And it starts off sort of small at that island, but it keeps growing. So it's a growing animal. And like most gods, it's like he's heading towards the mainland of Japan. So they come up with a plan to fight back against the animal or the Godzilla creature. I don't have to act like we don't know who Godzilla is, right?
Right,
But
right.
they don't. It's not like it exists within the other Godzilla universe, right?
Mhm.
And it looks old. So, well, like they do a good job with the effects to make it look like it takes place in the time that they're showing it, having been made in 2023. I think it came out earlier this year, 2024. It has some libertarian themes to it because it exists within the post-war time period. They talk about like MacArthur, they talk about the Americans and the Soviets, and Japan is demilitarized, so they don't have any fighters, they don't have any armed
Right.
destroyers. So they're saying like nobody from America wants to help out because they don't want to upset the Soviets and vice versa. So, Japan is left to itself to defend itself, and the government isn't able to either. So the private citizens have to stand up and defend
Oh.
themselves. And it's not a libertarian movie, but in that way,
Right.
it
Has some concepts that are
it touches me on my
right.
and it's really good. I mean, $15 million budget. It's really good. And
Nice.
so I have a weird recommendation that I don't know I'd recommend to everyone. But if you grew up watching old Godzilla movies that had the bad dubbing,
Yeah.
the way this movie comes out on Netflix is in Japanese with subtitles. If you're a purist and you like watching movies with the actors speaking their natural voice and reading it, by all means do that. But if you grew up with bad dubbing, I recommend you putting the audio on American English and watching them do that.
Because it doesn't
Showing
match
his
their
way.
mouth moving. Yeah.
It's wonderful like that. Now, if you never grew up
It's
with
nostalgic.
that,
Yeah.
it's a nostalgic movie anyways, right?
Right.
It hits the nostalgia anyways. I feel like that completes the nostalgia. So I
Okay.
recommend
Fun.
watching it with the American English and dubbing.
Mhm.
But if you don't like that, watch it with subtitles. It's still a great movie. Can't recommend it enough. I can't stress this enough. It was done with a $15 million. The special effects look great. They look really good, and it's $15 million. And it fits in with the rest of, especially if you like old Godzilla movies, you're gonna like this. Like it
Nice.
yeah. I can't wait for you to see this and tell me what you think.
Cool.
All right.
I will watch.
I want to talk about this one though.
Oh,
Did
I
you
haven't
watch
seen
Axel
this yet.
Foley? You didn't watch Axel F?
I know.
We had a 4th of July weekend. No,
I know.
Adam's been living on 4th of July weekend ever since he quit his job. He's like, I don't have a job. What do you mean weekend?
Every day's
I don't know
Friday.
what it's like to live like this. Jesus, you stress me out, man. Like just a Scrooge McDuck pile of money he swims through every day to come to the podcast.
I wish.
Well, I can't imagine. It's been months. All right. I hate to think that there's other people in your life that stress you about this, and I'm adding on to that, but like you're doing fine. It's fine.
I'm good.
It must be nice living in the Bay Area where money's not real. All right. So here's the first thing I want to say about this movie, and I think it gives away the rest of my review.
Mhm.
This movie should have been in theaters. In a world
Really?
where COVID didn't happen and we didn't
Yeah.
stop going to movie theaters and they didn't have to have like Top Gun Maverick and Oppenheimer and Barbie to make us come back to theaters, this would have been a blockbuster smash. It's a good movie.
Nice.
And if Beverly Hills Cop 3 didn't exist, because don't watch that, right?
Mhm.
I'm jumping ahead in my review. If Beverly Hills Cop 3 didn't exist, you'd be like, of course I'm going to go see the next Beverly Hills Cop movie.
Right, of course.
It's like
Yeah.
they've never failed, because 1 and 2 were fantastic.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
It should have been in theaters. I honestly feel like it should have been on Netflix and in theaters with a title
Dual
card
release.
that said Netflix in theaters. Go fuck yourself, Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like we don't care if this makes no money with distribution. We want to tell you how much you suck. Here's Netflix in your fucking theaters.
Yeah.
Eat a dick. Who's that guy? Scorsese. Eat a dick, Scorsese. It's not an action hero. It's not a superhero movie. God,
Mm.
It's too many fucking TIE fighters. So the opening scene is great. It jumps right into it. And they hit all of the notes. It's, first of all, it starts off in Detroit, right? He's a Detroit cop, and he's doing a scene with a white sidekick that's awkwardly Caucasian, and it's hilarious, right? Like, and it's like the white cop that means well, but he gets nervous. Like, you know what? Those of you who are too woke sensitive, it's not even bad in that way. Like, but like, I get how my review might scare you off. Calm down. I want to tell you, Paul Reiser's back in it again. Paul Reiser, king of the 80s. Well, not king, jester of the 80s, maybe.
Sure.
Paul Reiser's in it. Because remember, in the original Beverly Hills Cop, Paul Reiser was the guy back in Detroit that was always covering for him.
Yeah.
He's doing that again in there. They hit all the Judge Reinhold's in it.
What?
It's in Detroit, man. Like, the opening scene's in Detroit, and I'm like, oh, they do like some like montage scenes where they show American Coney Island and National Coney Island, like the Joe Louis fist. Like, it's so fucking good. The music in it is fantastic. They do reference to the older, they do doing the Neutron dance. Like, they hit a lot of the songs from the first ones, but also stuff that doesn't sound out of place. That Shakedown song from Shakedown dun, 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 from Beverly Hills Cop 2. Shooter McGavin is in it on a golf course scene. Like, Joseph Gordon-Levitt sort of plays the new Judge Reinhold. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Third Rock from the Sun.
Wow.
It feels like an 80s buddy cop movie. Like,
that's what it should
they
feel
captured the vibe. They kept like, and it was about halfway through when it was like, they didn't fuck up. Like, there was times where I was hopeful and I was like, don't screw this up. About halfway through, I was like, they continued to capture the vibe of an 80s buddy cop movie. And Axel's funny. I'm sorry, Eddie Murphy's funny in it. To the extent that it led me to our trivia for this week's show. Alan, you think I forgot a game? I didn't forget a game.
What do we got?
There was a point in this movie where something dawned on me. What do you think first? Too many TIE fighters. I haven't finished this. Hold on. Can I do a refill?
Yeah, do it.
I can't believe you haven't watched this yet. This is right up your alley to want to see this movie.
I wanted to watch it.
You were both looking forward to this.
Yeah, I got
watch it tonight, Alan.
I probably will.
All right. I can't believe I drank so much.
I'll watch it this weekend at least.
There's almost nothing left. Let's just pour the rest in there.
Let's do it.
It's all foamy, but it's going to be delicious. Alan, it's a session IPA. It's fine. It's only 5.5%.
Oh, it's fine.
I like when a session's like, look, dude, we sessioned it. It's only 5.5%. That's more than a Budweiser. You give me a second here.
Yeah. Enjoy. It's a tasty little session IPA, I'm sure.
So good. The good thing about IPAs is they can get a little warm and they still taste good.
Yeah, still good. Yeah.
Not like Coors.
They got that bite.
Yep. Okay. So I was watching this movie, and okay, maybe there's people out here in Nuntakistan that have never heard of Beverly Hills Cop. In a sentence or two, can you tell me what his whole shtick is? What Axel Foley's shtick is? That's a lot to throw on someone. Like, what makes it different than a cop movie? He would walk up to someone and
it's just like I'm thinking of the way he interacts with the cops.
That's what I'm talking about. Do it.
So when he first meets the cops in Beverly Hills, he's like, well, he's out of place for sure.
Fish out of water, sure.
He's fish out of water,
but he's confident and
he's
confident. He overcompensates it, right?
Yes, and he pokes fun at people. He's very funny, but also sort of non. What's the word? Maybe I've had too many.
Not offensive.
Not offensive.
Yeah,
and doesn't take himself too seriously.
Yeah. But he's always like pretending to be someone, right? He's like, I'm the health inspector for this area.
Right.
You let me in here and look at this.
Definitely always. Yeah. He's getting past security
from
always.
The 80s does that remind you of? This is a lot to ask you. I'm sorry.
This is a lot.
Does that remind you of Fletch at all?
Oh, yeah, I suppose.
It's all ball bearings these days. Come on. Right? Remember?
So sort of like imposter always.
Yes, 100%. It's Dr. Singelinden. Yeah.
Yes.
Rosen penis. Yeah.
Right.
So it got me thinking, what came first? Fletch or Beverly Hills Cop?
Oh.
Take a guess.
I think Fletch came first.
That would have been my guess too.
Was that
and
wrong?
we'll do better and not be so racist in the future. Sorry, I'm learning. I'm becoming better. Yeah, whatever we're supposed to say when we do that. So Fletch came out May 1985.
Okay.
Beverly Hills Cop came out a whole year and a half earlier, December of 1984.
No shit.
So Fletch is entirely a Beverly Hills Cop ripoff.
It's a
And think
ripoff.
about it. He's a reporter pretending to be someone instead of a cop pretending to be
Right.
someone. It's the
I
same
mean,
fucking movies.
To be fair,
And they're both Saturday Night Live comics. I just realized that.
that's funny. To be fair, we were both children when those came out. So
Oh,
we didn't see
yeah.
them
We saw
until
these as
years
young
later.
adults because our parents told us they were funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have that frame of reference. But
Right.
Yeah,
No, I
that
know.
is
They were
wild.
old
Yeah,
movies
yeah.
when we saw them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So that was the first trivia question.
Okay.
I got two more.
Okay.
Guess who was originally cast to be the leading role in Beverly Hills Cop?
Bill
At
Cosby.
80
No.
What did you say?
Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby. Great guess. Great guess. Great guess. Great guess.
Richard Pryor. No.
No. Stallone. Not Frank.
What?
Not Frank Stallone. I know you were thinking it was Frank Stallone.
Sylvester?
Sylvester Stallone was going to be the cop.
Oh God, that would have
Sylvester
been
Stallone
awful.
took a look at the script. He was the king of the world at the time. You know, he was like, I did all these Rocky remakes.
Rocky, yeah.
I did Rocky. Turns out I could be a director and I write scripts. So, let me take a look at this script. So he took a look at the script after they cast him for it. And he said, I'm going to scratch this out. And he rewrote it and he resubmitted the script back to the studio. And he just rewrote it into a total like cop action drama, right? Like
Of course
80s,
he did.
right? Of course he did.
Right.
Studio hated it. They kicked him off or he walked off, one of the two, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then they hired Eddie
Murphy.
Murphy and
Yeah,
it became Eddie Murphy's breakthrough acting role. He was funny and famous as a comic, but like it was his breakthrough acting role, right?
Right,
And the rest is history. After that, he did Showgirls in Chicago and Meet Dave.
Right.
I'll never forget that Meet Dave ruined him from winning an Oscar. They were like, we're gonna give him an Oscar for was it Showgirl? No, Showgirls. Was it? It's not Chicago. What was it gonna be?
Medea.
No. Alan, that is a different black man. God. Anyway, he was going to win an Academy Award, but he did Meet Dave the same year. And they were like, never mind. And it came out right before the Academy. They're like, no, we can't give it this way. Anyway, so Stallone left the project.
Right.
But he took his rewritten script with him.
Oh.
And he made what movie?
So it was a cop action movie that he made?
Come on, dude. You got this. Famous Stallone movie, but kind of sub-tier.
All I'm thinking is like Demolition Man. That's way later.
It's not Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. It's not Bird on a Wire either.
Stallone cop action movie. I don't have it.
You're familiar with Cobra though, right?
Oh, of course.
So Cobra was the script that he wrote. So he said, "Fuck this Beverly Hills Cop bullshit. What about Cobra?" Which is a fine Stallone movie.
Yeah, but it's garbage compared to Beverly Hills Cop.
Right? It's not going to make. They didn't make three of those. 3.5. Yeah.
Wow.
Right?
That's wild.
Hey, you came to None Taken for a little, did you?
Yeah, there you go. Get some Stallone knowledge.
Go see Axel F on Netflix. You're already paying for Netflix, or you're using your friend's account. Go watch.
I am definitely watching it before we do another episode.
Good.
Yes.
Ask you a question when we get out of here.
Yeah.
So I got two little highlights here, and save one for a different show. Do you want my question that's centered around horsing around or train the band?
Let's do horsing around.
Horsing around is a weird phrase for tomfoolery.
Yeah, it is kind of odd.
In reference to something that has to do with a measurement for a unit of work.
Yes, horsepower. Yes.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna end the show with you saying horsepower and commenting. Wait, I gotta hit this button.
When a guy's banging you,
Y'all let me in his damn house.
Drive safe.
Come in the name of peace.
LMFAO.
So what in the world is this?
Is Kevin McCarthy a moron, and if so, why?
Say cheers.
Would you say something that stupid?
I come without
Cheers.
explanations or solutions.
I'm a very sexy lady, cat turd. I will not suffer this harlot.
How great! An anti-American Marxist.
Ted Cruz, go fuck yourself.
Read the news.
China is asshole.
God bless the United States.
Podcasting.
Probably not cool that I did the Hawk 2 into the microphone.
No worries. Cheers, man. That was a good show. That was fun.
That was a great show. Drive safe, buddy.
All right. Cheers.